I've got a call coming in from Gordon Wagner, longtime listener, wants to know. He says his body fat percentage decreased 3%. What was that, from 33 to 30%?
No,
Pretty
actually,
close.
I don't have it. And yo, what's up, Gordon? He's a homie, a
Hey,
legend.
Gordon. Hey, Gordon. Look at this.
Dude,
Yeah.
if I was gay,
Ow! I
no,
just hit my head.
so no, I mean, frankly, I've known you for a long time. And by the way, it was Eddie actually told me that I had a gut. This is what, like 12 years ago. You remember that? Hey, fuck you. But that fit shaming dude is the one that really was like, it was you, my girlfriend, and then this dude told me I looked pregnant at the surf shop, and I was like, what? But the thing is I'll say this, Eddie, you look as lean at the midline as I've ever seen you, and since I've known you for 12, 13 years now, you know, and
Yeah,
that's
it's
tough, dude. I mean, your kids, the stuff you got going on. I mean, I'm pretty intimate with it, and it's like, it's cool. It's
well,
really cool what you've done
like
here.
like I said, I've transitioned thanks to both of you guys saying to me, "Well, what are you going to do when this is over?" And now I just switched. I'm eating really good vegetables with tons of meat, tons of good fats. Like I'll sit down, I'll make a couple. I'll use the Costco grass-fed burgers. I'll make like 3 of those in a day and just jam some avocado on it, and I feel great. So
So let's quickly talk about that, Eddie. So something that I mentioned to you in the beginning, and I brought up with Mike, was the weight loss and the body composition stuff. I tell all my clients is that it's secondary, it's a tertiary thing. In my case, look, I'm Captain Concussion over here. I got my health from all the concussions and stuff. So me being passionate and into nutrition has been a proxy of me, having to manage my own health. And what I realized is that, or my endeavors were always about dealing with, neuropathy, my memory, and being my cognition, because it's been getting shitty. The weight loss. I mean, when I'm turned 43 and I look down and I got a 6-pack on me, I never had one. So, and now that I just turned 50, it's like, the side effect of eating these quality foods. I mean, people don't really speak about like the word economy. You being a comedian on the road and having to have this brilliant catalog and inventory of information and jokes and this and that, and to be on fly and on wit. Have you noticed anything with that? Because that's really, and I could explain some of the mechanisms there with the GABA and glutamate matrix and like.
I will say, look, I might have been sleeping better. Uh, I might have been. Uh, there's a lot of reasons for that I can't give credit to the diet. Just maybe more of a focus on my sleep. So I might have upped my sleep just a little bit because the
Do you
kids.
curate your sleep data? Because I mean, the Aura Ring has been an epiphany
So
for me.
I have a sleep 8 bed or 8 sleep,
Great, that's right.
and the bed tells me everything, and creepy stuff that I shouldn't know. Um, like
It's like
basically,
your
let's
wife,
just
she's gone. It's like, what?
well, no, it's got my side and my wife's side, and
Oh,
yeah, and it registers your heart rate. So it's doing heart rate variability. So I will, I'll be, some things go on in the bed, and it'll be like, I'll get a notice from the phone. It's like, hey, your heart rate went up last night.
hey, leave your wife alone, dude. What if it just like
Yeah, it's like, is everything
It's not when you're out of town, is it?
dude, Mike, ouch.
yeah, yeah.
Lauren's
wait a
heart rate variability is a 120.
wait a minute.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So you feel, because one thing that was really impressive to me is that you've always been a real straight shooter, and like I said, if anything, you kind of like you've kitsched yourself into like kind of diminishing yourself, and I say that as your friend because you are a gnarly athlete, dude. I mean, I haven't trained with you a bunch. I've surfed with you. We'll not talk about your surfing, but you've always been really authentic and honest about how you feel, and for you to say the things that you said was really cool because you're like, dude, I haven't felt like this. I never felt like this. It feels so good. And it was like,
I really did feel awesome, and I I'm I don't know who to give the credit to, and
yourself, dude.
RPM's not a sponsor of this, but I was doing workouts, and I I I don't know if it was that these workouts were less than what I would do normally, that I'd program something myself, and I'm not a CrossFit practitioner. And RPM's got these guys, some of the best CrossFit athletes ever. So the programming that I was doing, maybe it was that, but I doubt it because I've done 7 million different workouts.
It
I
wasn't that,
think
Eddie. It's the
I
food
think it was the
subtext, brother.
food. I think it
Yeah.
was the food that I just
Yeah.
didn't feel the inflammation. I wasn't feeling the aches and pains. I was walking around, and I had a lot of nagging tendonitis going on in my body from hips and elbows. And all of a sudden, I'm like, where did all this shit go? And I had heard people say that, like saying, quit sugar and all your tendonitis will go away. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. You're full of shit.
Well, can I speak to the cutting out of the sugar? So I really want to highlight this with people because it's really important. The first thing is to understand is that one of the big tenets of what I do is utilization. So, for instance, when I was talking to you, and I say this with everyone, so all three of us. So, if Mike, you're on the road and you're like, hey, so I'm going to do a fast today, which is we're not fasting for any particular reason, but one, it's just allowing restriction in our body, letting this autophagy and apoptosis mechanisms not to get better, but to do it, to actually mechanistically do it without interruption. When when GABA and glutamate and your brain is not running off 100% of glucose. So another thing with you that was interesting, typically I have people use a ketone meter, a glucometer and a ketone meter. Why do I use a keto meter, especially when we're not being ketogenic? That's bullshit. All of us are ketogenic. Ketosis is a secondary metabolic pathway that comes from being restricted from glycogen. So it's not really a diet. It's more of like an exposure or not. So you in this endeavor were in a ketogenic space. We didn't pull that data because I didn't want you to, bro. You're too busy. Go crush your shows. Go be a rad dad. Go make money. So the thing is, though, is that when we do get into the ketogenic space and the liver is oxidizing fat and we're using beta hydroxybutyrate as a secondary substrate, first being glucose, the brain will always rely on glucose. But the deal is, it's with the ketone bodies is that when our brains start utilizing that last the 30%, the brain will use about 30%, maybe a little more, as an energy substrate. And when that happens, what it does is it deglycates the brain. So this is also, I hear people like the big ketards, like I'm a keto guy, right? Like, and they're like, yeah, keto, fix cancer. That's false. There's only relevant research and literature on three cancers that ketogenic diet, known as a therapeutic ketogenic diet, which is very, very strict, works. And those are brain cancers. And that's because ketone bodies and the way they're made, they will go through the brain blood barrier. So that's why the ketogenic diet is of great interest to people with neuropathies and, captain concussion. So that GABA to glutamate matrix improves. And GABA is known to upregulate serotonin and dopamine um, and actually improve the limbic response, being the
Okay,
happies and the feels.
let me ask you a question. This is somewhere that I didn't mention. I had healthy shits the entire time, which I was
Yes.
surprised of. Maybe a little more. What's that stool sample thing?
Yeah,
The
it's
barometer,
the Bristol scale. Yeah.
the Bristol scale. Maybe
Yeah.
a little.
Lots of sixes,
It
right?
was maybe a little harder than it should have been.
Well, we want three and
Because
four. 3 and 4 is
eh,
ideal. And actually, I mentioned this to Eddie. So typically, when a person changes their nutrition, what happens is the gut biota, just the endogenous system that you've got, is going to change. To the exposures of foods, also is going to change. So now, the one thing that was a little bit concerning to me was that it's really important that we get a good bolus dose of fiber every day. Between 15 and 25 grams, depending on the person's size. Why is fiber so relevant? Resistant starches, they help produce this stuff called inulin, not insulin, but inulin. Also, they promote the development of the mucosa in the stomach, this stuff called chyme. So if you ever get really sick and you vomit and you're like, dude, the devil just came out of me. That's the stuff that allows your stomach to be super acid, where if I put your hand in your stomach, it would melt. So
oh,
it's
I always thought it was bile.
No, well, bile is bilirubin.
Chyme.
Yeah, chyme is different. So chyme is the mucus, if you will. So bile and bilirubin. Bile is excreted from the gallbladder, and what happens
Right.
is that is introduced into the system to help emulsify fats. Bilirubin is seen in the blood. If we have really high levels of bilirubin, this is where we'll get jaundice. You'll get like that. And forgive me
Yellowish.
for not knowing more about that, but the bile thing is intrinsically important. So something we discussed with you, Eddie, was like my gallbladder is feeling it. I believe you
Yeah.
brought that up, correct?
Yeah. A couple
So, and
days
that's,
I had a side
yeah.
pain.
So Yeah, so that's if you get gallbladder pain, it's typically up around the right side of the ribs. Another thing to look out for too, guys, or listening, is that if you ever get like weird neck pain or pain on the right side, what happens is the gallbladder, when it gets inflamed, which happens frequently, by two parts. If it's not used enough, it gets sludgy. If it gets used too much, it gets anti-sludgy, but it almost gets inflamed. So it'll push on a thing called the phrenic nerve. So I used to sit there and I had an ex girlfriend that was really tall, and I was like, I couldn't hold her hand; it always hurt. Well, this is what 7 8 years ago, and it was I have it's called cholecystitis, which is a slightly grumpy um, gallbladder. So with what we did there with Eddie, it was basically bile salts. If you add in bile salts, it will typically be beneficial for the gallbladder. So in this case here, we used ox bile salts. Were actually bile salts extracted from oxen, and yeah, and that's really the quote unquote fix for that, unless you've got something more systemically wrong. But